So if we think back on this example, then right, there's a few conditions that were made then that are, again intended for rehabilitation. So in this particular case, right, if we think about we could send this person to prison. We could send them for a long time, and they would probably learn some hard lessons, and they would lose a lot because of that, right? And so, it's one of those things like, do we believe this is a first time offense? Do we believe that this person is incorrigible? Or, are we thinking, so are they a chronic offender? Or is it like a one off kind of issue? So, hasn't offended before. Kind of a minor, and really didn't go about it in a very smart way. At the end of the day, just a lot of things you could have done differently if this was like your intent, right? So not a very smooth criminal. So in this case, then, so we're making like probation, like an option, and if this is the punishment that we want to do. So there's one thing that we have to consider, right? So first is we got to figure out, like, why might this have happened? So, because, did you just want money? Was it just for the thrills of it, like the psychic games or something else, right? So in this particular case, right, so what a probation officer would do, and if you had a career as a probation officer, you would do something called a PSI, which is a pre-sentence investigation. So as part of this investigation, you're getting some, background information on the person that's being, who's the offender, right? So are they tied to the community, or so are they a flight risk kind of thing? Do they have stable employment? How are their connections with other people? And things like that, right? So they all try to get this background information. Has this person committed a lot of crimes before? How suitable are they for possibly being rehabilitated? So that's the first thing. The other part that comes up for this kind of thing too is that, and this is something that's true for me, is that there is a victim impact statement. So they consult victims. Hey, how did this affect you? What it made you feel? How did this disrupt your life? Things like that, right? So, tell us about the harm that was caused by this person, because we want to weigh what victims said and felt during the sentencing process, because in some ways, right, they're inextricably tied to this individual, to this crime, to this pain, and so we should do something to, victim impact statement. So, so that is an issue, right? So, like, how were victims affected? So, in this particular case, what in pre-sentence investigation likely revealed, right, is that my roommate, who was a friend, had a gambling problem. So where I went to school was near a state border, and you could drive 45 minutes to an hour and get to a casino. And we had gone to a couple poker tournaments. It was kind of fun because you could gamble, because this is on native land. So you could gamble if you were 18. And, so I was 18. He was older. I forget how much older he was than me. But, I was like 20 when we went. But regardless, right, so he had this gambling already. He was going up there all the time, and he would play poker endlessly. Now, the thing is, right, unlike other investments, maybe this is kind of fun. But, I think we played in some tournaments, but I think he was also just like going to free roll tables where you just go play. And the thing is, right, sometimes you win, and sometimes you lose, right? And I remember, like, he went on this gambling trip one time, and he said that, like, this story is, like, ridiculous, right? Like, he would go, and he had, he went to this tournament, or no, he went to a table, right? And he played, and he won like $5K at this table, right? So he won $5,000. Goes to like a new table. He's like, okay, I run my luck out here, and he wins like another 5K. Right? Wow, it's pretty incredible. Like $10,000 off this trip, like I would be, damn, feeling damn good, right? And so Sami told me the story. I'm like, oh my god, wow, that's really, it's really great. Like, what'd you do with it? Like, I mean, like you got any big plans? With like this kind of stuff? Are you having a good time? He's like, no, I gave it to my mom, for my brother, so he could go to private school. Because he's getting bullied. Because my mom couldn't pay for it. I drove immediately from the casino to her place and gave this money to her so she could pay so my little brother wouldn't be bullied. And so, like, on its face, right? What a just and noble thing that he did. That's really sweet. He's very selfless. They're just like, there's no issues with the story. Now, did I believe him? It was the way that he told it. I had some doubts, right, about that. And I had doubts that he won this kind of money at the table. Of course, this can happen to anyone. Anyone can get lucky. And so, it's very likely that this story is true. But knowing him and knowing some of the other stuff that he said that was a bit, we'll say, outlandish, and then, knowing the Simpson, I think there was just a larger problem happening where he just felt the need, some compulsive gambling kind of problem. So the thing is, right, so in this case then, boom, as a condition of probation. So if you need money, right, and it's to feed like this addiction to gambling, you should probably go to Gamblers Anonymous, right? And I believe that was a condition of his parole, was to deal with issues of Gamblers Anonymous or issues of addiction, right? Because gambling is one form of addiction. You could be addicted to sex, you could be addicted to, drugs, you can be addicted to alcohol, right? You can also be addicted to gambling or that kind of thrill seeking. You can be addicted to shopping, right? And when this affects like the financial part of your life, right? Like something that should be addressed. So that was one aspect to it. Also, because he didn't have any more of this criminal history, right? So no monitors, so he wasn't like going to physically harm people. He didn't have to have it on his wrist or anything like that. He also had this issue, like, because there were no monitors going into place, right? So there's no monitors happening. He doesn't have an ankle monitor. Doesn't have to pay like a day probation fee. So he doesn't have to like check in every day. He's not really like a threat to people. Which, this kind of thing can come up if like you're a flight risk, so you got to check in every day, like a day reporting center. This monitor kind of thing can probably be like a violent kind of crime against you where you're perceived to be a threat to yourself or perhaps to other people. But you did have to pay probation fees, so there's a fee for, the fee you got to pay so that other people can watch your butt. And also had to like check in, hey, how are things going? Are you going to treatment? Right. And they probably maybe also suspected that, maybe there was some drug use that prompted you to gamble because you're chasing a high or a rush or something like that. So maybe you had to do like some urine analysis, UA, and like that to make sure you're not using any kind of other drugs, right? And so what ends up happening is that, so with successful completion, so I think it was like 2 years since it was a felony of being clean, not getting into trouble, you can't offend again, right? And meeting all the other terms, right? He did not receive felonies on his record. Which is, like a big deal, right? Because the mark of a criminal record can dramatically impact your life trajectory. Especially, and it can also, since he's in the military, right, there's a lot of rules, like he could be deployed, so you might not have been kept up with it. You can't tell the military, hey, I gotta stay because, I did bad things, right? You can't really do that. So he's able to go on, he can access loans, various housing things, all these things are net beneficial to what he did. This doesn't excuse like what was done, right? So it's not like, great job, you did this or something like that. But it does allow one, allow one to stay in the community and maintain bonds, right? Which is seen as net positive. So, and as far as I know, I mean, I haven't talked to this person in years, right? But he like was able to, I guess, stay out, right? So he was able to stay stable. He could maintain his community ties, and given the offense, right, maybe didn't necessarily deserve going to prison, right? In this case, which is, probably better because it's a net positive, right? So, fun fact, right? Because there's so many like costs and so forth, probation is frequently used in the community, and where I think it's like 2/3 of all criminal convictions or sentences receive probation rather than going to prison, right? And that is in large part because we believe that prison is like this awful, terrible kind of thing in place. And to some degree, that's true, right? So, I think the chapter covers the rest of like important readings and considerations. So we'll kind of leave it here as just like an example of it. Hopefully, this helps explain a few concepts. So, see you guys.